Polaris. Such a great luck that we have a North Star. So many explorations were driven by it. It's such a great way for humans to find themselves when they get lost, and so much of the navigation relied on it, and so much exploration relied on it. Humanity itself relied on Polaris. Polaris was such a great, let's say, leader in the history of humanity. But here's the kicker. So 3000 years ago, Polaris, wasn't the North Star, due to the axis of the Earth that is gently wobbling and moving. 3000 years ago, the pole star was Tuban, right? And that's again approximately. And in 10,000 years or a bit more, there's gonna be a new star that's going to become the North Pole. So, what does this mean? Why is it beautiful? We have used Polaris for all of our exploration and for us understanding the world in a time where we had the same window of opportunity as we had to recognize that Polaris was the North Star. In other words, Polaris will never again be the North Pole star. In, as I was saying, 10,000 years, if we still exist, which I honestly highly doubt, and I'm working on proving that, but you don't even have to. We are so close to the doomsday clock, and everything can happen at any moment and any time that just obliterates us. But let's assume we're gonna live up until then, and even further than that, because so far civilization has a history of 10,000, 12,000, 13,000, depending on how you want to call it, but let's say 10,000 years, right? And, well, to be honest, humanity has a history of millions and millions of years if you link it to evolution and all the chains that were needed in the evolutionary path for us to be here. Okay, so it's an unbroken chain. It's the same thing as the maternal Eve that I absolutely love. That at some point in time there was one human, one grandmother of all of our genes, and that's so beautiful and so crazy and so weird, man. And Polaris is beautiful in itself, but it's just a star. It shows what it means to live in a certain window of opportunity. When a star, because that's basically the catch, right? So it's about the magnetic pole. Okay, that's the whole catch of it. The North Star sits above the rotational axis, and this allows, or almost above it to be fair, which allows us to use it as a compass. But imagine it shifted, which it will, okay? Maybe all of that exploration would not have been viable 700 years ago. Maybe it would have just taken longer. But this is the window of opportunity. And in the life that we all have, which is extremely limited, extremely pointless, extremely meaningless in the sense of everything, I want to, again, maybe if you want to have this sort of thoughts late in the night, but again, I need to tell you that we have the theory of Big Bang, but before Big Bang, well, time doesn't make sense. Of course, we We don't know what happens before because there is no before, but however, there was an initial state of the universe, and then you just move the question back and back, and the question is what has caused that initial state of the universe, because our intuition is that for something to exist, something must have caused it, and then you go into a never-ending loop of trying to find meaning and reason and how things happened. And none of our theories go that far. And lots of people claim and argue that they even shouldn't. Why does it matter for me to know the nature of the universe? Does my life change in any way? This is what we typically do with Newton's laws. If you've done physics at a mechanical level, if you are an engineer and so on, you know that we use a lot of approximations. I'm a civil engineer by trade, so I absolutely had nightmares with Newtonian mechanics, right? Just because I didn't like it, not because I found it extremely hard. I quite found it boring, and I never had this love for angles that the old Greeks did. And by the way, like, it just as another beautiful thing, when the negative numbers were created with the whole revolution, and I didn't mean to say negative numbers. I wanted to say rational numbers. With the whole revolution and the whole idea that there was a negative area, that was something that the human mind couldn't really comprehend, and the whole idea of the angles, right? How can you have a negative angle and so on? That's so beautiful, and we go and explore those things, those thoughts. But we need to understand that everything is created, and it's been 7 minutes of rambling, so you're probably wondering why you're here. You probably didn't listen to this, but if one person has listened so far, here's, I wouldn't say the catch, but here's the nice question. 99.9% of philosophers and scientists agree that the universe is determined. The ones who don't understand basically how that definition works. Okay? So if you're claiming that the universe is not determined and you bring in chaos theory, then you are wrong, because that has nothing to do with determinacy or not of the universe. And if you try to claim quantum effects at the level of the universe, then you are mistaken due to an order of magnitude, okay? So this is why actually we don't have a law of everything, okay? We do have the two laws, the general relativity and quantum mechanics, and at the level of the universe, of course, we are talking about general relativity, okay? And when you do that, everything is surprise determined. Okay, so if everything is determined, here's the question, here's the fucking kicker, here's the thing that bothers me so much, and I don't know if we're ever gonna find it. If it's determined, it doesn't matter who determined it, okay? So it can be determined. I'm not, by the way, I'm not excluding or suggesting a creator. I started to tend a bit more to not dismissing the creator. I've tried so much in my works to destroy this idea, and I couldn't. I cannot, but I'm still trying to fight it. But anyway, let's go back to what was the fascinating thing. So, if everything is determined forever, this means that us finding the laws that determine what happens are also determined. This is the kicker. What makes us think that those laws are determined to work, to give us a positive answer? Why wouldn't those laws give us incorrect answers? Or just why wouldn't it be possible for us never to reach that phase and that level of having a general law? There is no intuition. There is nothing that points in the direction that, because the universe is determined and all the laws of the universe are determined, those laws also have to be epistemically true. There is nothing that says that. And this is the insanity. So even if you have tried, like you spent 5,000 years, all of the humanity, just focuses on those questions, and you reach a certain formula, okay? If everything was determined for that formula to be at some point found by some sort of life entity as we are, why would that formula return to you the true nature, whatever that means, because that's also a loaded question or a loaded phrase, of the universe? And that's nothing. And it's not a complex thought, it's a thought that many people had before me. But we still try to find an answer. And I think we are in another Polaris phase. We are in a phase where we are in the best position to find the answer to the question. Maybe we find the wrong equation. Wrong, whatever that means again. Let's say, okay, let's not go into the benevolent demon who just tries to trick us, but no, I'm just saying, let's say that by design or not, but of course, if you claim that there a law can be found and that law is going to be incorrect no matter what, then you are sort of implying a designer that didn't want you to understand the laws. So I don't think that if there were to be a creator, and this is the most analytical that I can get, if there were to be a creator, man, this would take a long time to go into the whole idea of simulations and creations and why would you create or simulate or go into that. So I will just share the idea of it. The whole point is that you do not want the people that you created and people that I'm tired. I'm after a long day of work. Oh man, this is tough. Because the words are failing me. But let me try to phrase it again. So, for a creator, there is no benefit that its creation understand the process of the creator. You can see that there is a cool parallel with algorithms. Okay? For an end user of social media, compared to a company like let's take Meta, okay? For Meta, there is no use that their users know the algorithm. Actually, it's the opposite. They try to make it as opaque as possible. Ding dong, that's the catch. If there is a creator, you will never know. I don't think, like, all the things that are classical intuitions, which of course are wrong, okay? It can be the other way. So this is not a scientific theory. It's unscientific, and Popper would just rotate in his grave. But that's the thing, that's what I'm trying to say. It's either not a creator and the problem becomes so complicated, because at some point, if you go in the regression, at some point you get into a void state. No matter what, you have the hot dense state that produced the Big Bang. But that hot dense state also was generated, in the lack of a better term. Okay? Matter was generated. So it's... What meaning has nothingness? What meaning has void? What is that even? Nothing makes sense, man. Nothing does. So, in the absence of the creator, everything breaks down. And that's the catch. You either accept the creator, which is not a nice thought, because you realize that you are never able to understand what's happening, because most likely that's your purpose, not to understand it. Or you don't have a creator, and you're probably never gonna be able to figure out what happened for you to be here. Yeah. Good night, I guess.